in the middle of nowhere, and we've had our first puncture on Nag's two-wheeler. Fortunately, we stopped outside this shop, so we just sort of rode up here, and there's a gentleman there who came up to us. I think what he's saying is that he's going to call someone to come and fix the tire, but we're just going to have to wait and see. With great adventures come great punctures, says Nag. Every good adventure, if you ask me, requires a few essential elements. It starts with an ambitious and slightly ridiculous idea, but you also need a desire to seek discomfort, an ability to embrace uncertainty, and the willingness to simply go with the flow. Wave, Nag. Good company and some level of planning are, of course, great to have. This is the story of a bungled and beautiful 30-day, 3,500 kilometer slow-speed adventure across Vietnam. Before we go any further, I must introduce to you a few key characters. This is Mr. Nag, a friend I made courtesy of this very YouTube channel. We met in 2017 when he invited me to visit and stay with him during one of my motorcycle trips across India. We became fast friends, and a year later we rode together across southern India. In 2019, we jointly failed at riding in Bhutan. He spends more than half of his life at sea, but fortunately for me, whenever he is on land, he's up for any kind of adventure on two wheels. A few weeks ago, in fact, Nag called me one day and he said, "Hey, you remember 4 years ago you were talking about going and riding in Vietnam? Do you still want to do that?" And I said, "Yes." So he said, "When do you want to do it?" I said, "Now." And well,
it's happening.
We're here now, boarding a flight, and let's see how this goes. Oh, and as for me, I'm Rohit, a corporate lawyer who gave up a perfectly sensible and secure path through life to, well, do nothing in particular. But as it so happens, I've since spent my time traveling in different parts of the world on two-wheelers of various shapes and sizes, looking for new experiences and making friends along the way. Every now and then, I make videos from these travels that I put up here on YouTube, courtesy of which I get to share the realities of a life lived differently with like-minded people all over the world. Now, back to Vietnam. I think this is us. So here is our humble abode in Saigon. We've got a TV that's half in the bathroom, half in the cupboard. We've got a clean bathroom, which is good. We've got 2 separate beds, which is also good. I have roses, just adding to the ambience. Not bad. If you haven't yet been to Ho Chi Minh City, I can only describe it to you as blissful chaos. Coming from India, one would expect to be entirely at home amidst the buzz, but things just work differently in Vietnam. When you're crossing a street in Vietnam, you need to look to the opposite direction as you would in India, because traffic's on the opposite side. But the reality is, you need to look on both sides because traffic comes from every direction. While there was a temptation to find scooters in a hurry, we chose to first spend some time strolling through the streets and markets of the city instead. I find this to be the most immersive way to be introduced to a new country. It's an opportunity to look around with minimal distraction, discover interesting food experiences, strike up a few conversations with locals, and just watch daily life as it happens. And then we were ready for step 2. This country is a sea of scooters. Wherever you look, on the roads, on the sidewalks, there are just scooters, more than you can count. So this trip across Vietnam, it has to be on one of those. We need to find ourselves a scooter. After scouting the streets of District 1 and trying our luck with various scooter rental companies, we realized that many of the more popular setups were largely a rip-off. Their prices were hugely inflated, and the suite of services that they offered seemed like nothing more than a sales pitch. But perseverance tends to pay off, and eventually on a quiet bylane, we found Dragon bikes and their two nearly identical 110cc Honda Blade scooters. These scooters were past their prime visually at least, but what really mattered on a trip like this was substance. And the Honda engines that power these machines have a reputation for being unbreakable. As long as that would hold true, nothing else really mattered.
We have new full face helmets. We have our scooters. I think we're ready to hit the road.
Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi are connected by a large and busy highway, but we intended to plot a route of our own using a web of smaller roads that are spread across the country. The western side of Vietnam is a nearly continuous range of mountains, and on the east, it's all coastline. Our idea was to zigzag our way across the country, making our way from the dragon's belly, up through the neck and towards the head of the dragon in Hanoi.
Takes a lot of getting used to. It's so different. The gears are different. There's no clutch. The traffic's on the wrong side. Everything is upside down, and it's a lot to take in one shot. Whoa!
Vietnam moves on scooters unlike any other part of the world that I've seen. Here, no task is too big for even the tiniest scooter, and the possibilities are only limited by one's own imagination.
$55,000 dong. That's just about 2.5 liters.
Truth be told, things got off to a pretty rocky start. Soon after we got out of the city, we began to see a very different side to the country. People were still very friendly, but communication was hugely limited. It was hard to gather information, plan any routes, or even know what we were eating really.
We were using Google Translate. What they said was available was mud and pancakes, and we were just so hungry, so we said whatever it is, we'll eat it. They made something really interesting. We had no clue how to eat it. They were really amused, so they sort of made the rolls for us with the rice sheet. It was delicious. If we knew what we wanted or we could communicate, we would have never ordered this, so we wouldn't have got to try it out. Very interesting. I mean, I think this is one of the things that's hopefully going to happen as we travel across Vietnam, where just because we can't communicate, we'll end up having some very local experiences.
Apart from a few nice stretches here and there, we seemed to be making poor choices one after the other. The sultry weather did little to help matters, and it quickly became apparent that the challenge at hand was going to be a lot more daunting than we had expected. For a large part of the first 2 days, we struggled to find any kind of rhythm.
Ooh la la la. Ooh. Based on some very scientific calculation, we have come to the conclusion that our scooters are giving us about 133 kilometers between full tanks, right? We stop a bit early because we don't really know where we'll find fuel. Hydration, restroom, washroom, usually these fuel pumps have that as well. Wash your face, cool down a little bit. This particular one has a nice bench over here as well. And of course, shade. Jaeger bomb! This is weird with the... Oh, were you supposed to mix it before you pour it? Yeah. See, we're forever learning.
We didn't yet know it, but our trip was going to take on a very different trajectory right after this coffee break. The sequence of problems that would soon arise, ironically, would bring this entire adventure to life.
First flat tire. Puncture. Where?
Yeah.
To our rescue came a young man on a scooter with only the tools that he could carry in his small backpack. But clearly this was not his first rodeo, and he was able to find the puncture and patch up the tube without even removing the wheel. In a surprisingly short amount of time, we were ready to start riding again.
How many punctures do you think we're going to have on this trip?
Let's hope we don't have any more further punctures.
I expect we're going to have a few. This is Nag. His second puncture in like 30 minutes. You can't plan this kind of stuff. You just can't. You can't script it.
Another puncture meant another savior on another scooter. This time around though, instead of a patchwork job, we swapped out the tube on Nag's rear tire, hoping that this would get us back on our way and keep us moving in the right direction again.
I hope you're done with punctures for today. Now let's try to go find a place to stay. When we were fueling up or when we were leaving, you said, let's stop somewhere where we don't plan to stop. We spent the night at a place, the name of which we still do not know. We just about managed to find a motel. Yeah, it was just a friendly little reminder to never try to plan your trip entirely because... Hello! Hi! Yeah, nice. It's quite an interesting place to stay. Really rural
I
experience.
love the wardrobe, the walk-in
The
wardrobe.
walk-in wardrobe is something else. The bathroom, the see-through bathroom. Okay. Now they're building something. I think we should go.
Over the week that followed, we explored a series of routes in the districts of Lamdong, Daklak and Khanho. I have no idea whether I'm saying those right, of course.
Hakbao San, beautiful, beautiful waterfall, and there's nobody else over here.
We rode the lovely QL27C and many other roads, the names of which we will probably never know. Coaxing the tiny scooters up some of the steep inclines was nearly as much fun as the downhill stretches that came after. $60,000 dong worth of fuel in each of our bikes. It sounds like so much. Every time I'm paying, I'm like, oh my god, so much money. And then you start converting. But the funny thing is, if you start converting, by the time you figure out what it actually costs in rupees, you've forgotten where you started counting. You know? The times when we were not on the bikes, there was always something interesting to see. Someone to speak to, or try to at least, and of course, all kinds of unfamiliar food to experiment with.
Today Nag has a Vietnamese sizzler. What is this?
What sizzler? It's... I asked for something, noodles and egg. Very graciously they've given an egg, half poached egg, boiling water with I don't know what are these. We had these the other day as well with the rice paper, remember? There's some kind of meat over here, some kind of a cold cut. And noodles, of course.
Great, and here comes my food. Which, by the way, the loose translation as per Google Translate is jellyfish noodle soup.
Oh wow.
Fish noodle soup. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's the soup. Noodle. Whoa, jellyfish.
Yes, that is jellyfish.
This looks like jellyfish.
Hold it, hold it.
By the time we reached the quaint coastal village of Dockland, we'd been on the road for 10 days and ridden a little over 1,000 kilometers. It felt like a lot, but when we checked on a map, we realized that some might say we hadn't actually gone very far. This was always meant to be a slow travel experience, but I think we were setting a whole new standard on our trip. The fact that we had nearly 2/3 of our trip still ahead of us meant that there was more to look forward to than to reminisce upon.
Soft, turn the key and cooler off.
This was exactly the kind of trip that we had come here for.
There's a pause for relief.
I am pleased to report that we covered the distance that we planned to for the first time on this trip and a little bit more. And here we are on the coast. Finally. What is this place called? Story of our lives. This is the story of our lives.
I will see the whole deal through today. I've got better things to do. Okay, to leave a little bit undone and be the cat in the sun.